Good evening, families and staff. Thank you so much for joining us for our high school virtual family town hall. We are so excited to share our back to school plans from a high school perspective and answer any of the questions that you may have for us. So that you are feeling informed and confident walking into the school year and are as excited as we are to welcome you back. We've got some folks joining us this evening, and so I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and I'll call out our fabulous staff who are here. Principal Fisher.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alicia Fisher, and I'm the proud principal of Apollo High School. Thank you all for coming this evening.
Lori Posh.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lori Posh. I'm the Executive Director of Learning and Teaching. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Tammy DeLand.
Hi, I'm Tammy DeLand, Director of Communications, and I'm your moderator this evening.
Thank you. And Adam Holm.
Good evening. Adam Holm, Executive Director of Community Education.
And Adam is also oversees our activities at the high school level, and so we are grateful for him to be here. And on our call as well is Ryan Cox, Director of Technology, and he is in the background supporting us and being his fabulous self. So we are grateful for all of our district and building staff and administration who have joined us. We're going to walk you through a presentation to answer questions that have come to us already. So we've developed a presentation based on your questions. And then Tammy will be moderating the questions that are coming in live time. And she'll be interjecting at points where it makes sense as she scans what you're asking and trying to theme and summarize those. I'm going to apologize ahead of time if we don't get to your question and invite you to visit our FAQs or to email or contact me directly, or any one of our building principals or district administrators who are here would be happy to answer your questions if we don't hit them all tonight. So here you'll see our school start times. You'll see that there have been some changes as we shared prior. Our high schools are now, the student day begins at 9 o'clock and ends at 3:45. The reason for that change is that we have two tiers of busing. Our elementary schools are serviced by our first tier. They're dropping off students around 7:30 across the 250 square miles of our district. And because we are, of course, prioritizing health and safety for all, we need to make sure that we have time to sterilize all of those buses in between. And so we needed to back up our student day to allow for some cleaning to happen in between. So we appreciate your willingness and understanding. And honestly, when I told my high schoolers, they were more than thrilled. They're like, that's one of the few times I've gotten cheers. Yay, Mom, and I didn't embarrass them. So we really hope that this is a welcome change for your family. Principal Fisher, would you mind taking us through the high school schedule? What can they expect this year?
I would be happy to. Thank you so much. And as you can see, what we have in front of you on the slide is an every other day format for our hybrid within the high schools. And you'll see that in the red are our Monday, Wednesday days, and we're calling those our A days. In the blue, you see Tuesday and Thursday is assigned to the student group that we are calling our B days. And as Dr. Putnam alluded to, health and safety is a top priority. And with having students in the building every other day, that allows us to sanitize our surfaces, and it also allows us to have a safe capacity within our classrooms within the brick and mortar setting. It also allows a really awesome opportunity on Fridays in what we're calling our Flex Friday, or What I Need Day. And it allows students to be able to collaborate and contact teachers and be in communication around assignments they may need to make up, things that they may want to stretch on, and it provides them time to collaborate with their peers as well. Also, an advantage of this day is that our teachers are able to collaborate, provides them time to plan in a different way. Obviously, we're taking on a format that we're extremely excited about, but it's new to everybody. And when you take a look at the bottom part of the screen, you'll see in orange is our lunch periods. You'll see that we've increased the number of lunch periods to 5 to obviously be able to provide safe distance within our cafeteria and allow students that opportunity as an academic break. And the other piece you'll see embedded in the high school schedule In periods 1 and periods 4, you'll see an advisory embedded. One of our goals was to minimize transitions within the school, and we've accomplished that by collapsing our schedule. So you'll see that we have a block schedule in which students will attend their first 3 periods of class on their first day of school that week, which for our A group would be on Monday, and for our B group would be Tuesday. And so allowing, a longer class period is certainly advantageous to be able to go deeper within the curriculum, and provide those meaningful connections that we value with our students. It also provides a super cool opportunity for our students who are in the brick and mortar on that day to be able to collaborate with our B-Day students. And so, really looking at some unique possibilities that we have within this schedule. We certainly know it's different from what we've experienced in the past, and we're really excited about the opportunity to bring students back on campus in a safe way, and we believe that is really accomplished with this schedule that we've developed for the high school systems.
Alicia, a quick question, clarifying question on schedule. So will students be logging in to all 6 of their classes on Friday?
Yes, thank you. So they will be touching base with their students on Friday, and we're taking per period attendance per the governor's order. So that is a drastic change from our distance learning 1.0 in the spring. And so students can expect to wake up, whether or not they're in the building, and be enrolled in that class and logged in on that time. And so, we're really excited to get back to, what feels more like a regular school day from an instructional standpoint. And so really we want those Fridays to be flexible, but there is accountability within that attendance for all students. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Principal Fisher. And I would also like to acknowledge that Superintendent Jett has joined us. He was just wrapping up a community meeting, and so we are really grateful to have Superintendent Jett joining us. We will also revisit that Flex Friday day about some instructional expectations later on in this presentation. We know that people have questions about that. We'd like to talk with you a little bit about morning routines. Those are going to look a little bit different, not only in terms of school starting later, but in terms of what you and your student can expect. And so before your child even leaves the house, we're asking you to please take a look at any symptoms they might be exhibiting, and if it's possible, to please even take their temperature. If students are exhibiting a temperature of 100.4 or above, we'll ask that they stay home. The beautiful thing about our instructional design is that the learning and teaching is happening through our online platform, Schoology. So even if your student needs to stay home for that day or happens to be quarantined, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, students do not need to miss out on their learning. Certainly if there are severe illness for any reason, not just for COVID, then we would of course excuse those absences, but we want to make sure that students have access to their instruction, to their classmates. So when your student gets up in the morning, the student can complete a screening form in Skyward. It's a quick just a couple questions regarding COVID symptoms, and that just helps us track any potential outbreaks, so that we can be sure that we are maintaining health and safety. Students will then hop on the bus if they're taking the bus. We will load, of course, to the back from the front, and then when they arrive at school, we will unload from the front to the back, just making sure that we're maintaining the social distancing that's expected. All of our students and our staff can expect temperature checks when they come into our buildings, and we'll be utilizing as many entrances and exits as possible this year to ensure that we are helping move students and staff through the temperature checks quickly. And we appreciate that you have already screened for symptoms ahead of time. That will move that process through faster. And our school principals will be getting in touch with you to let you know which modes of transportation will be using which doors. For breakfast, Principal Fisher, would you like to talk to us a little bit about breakfast and hallway traffic? What happens when a student comes in the morning?
Absolutely. So one of the pieces we're focusing on are kind of a grab and go breakfast. And, one of the changes that we will have to get used to is that, a typical high school routine might look like I come about a half hour early and kick it with my friends. And so what we're really encouraging is that that you come as close as you can to our start time, and grab your breakfast, and then students will head to their first hour class. And within that process, we are going to be using a touchless transaction. Students will be using their school IDs and their barcode that will be tied to their lunch account, and that is different from in the past where we've used a keypad for students to enter. So these are just some of the examples of ways that we are keeping health and safety as a top priority. And Dr. Putnam mentioned traffic flow within the school. We are developing a one-way traffic flow within the school. So when I think about Apollo, it's a large one floor, and so we're working really hard to figure out what makes sense for one-way traffic flow. And then also at the end of the day, we will have staggered release times, which means groups of students will be released based on geographic presence to our exteriors, and students will be assigned doors. So an example being our busers will leave out of 2 doors within our building. Students who are dropped off will leave out of a certain door, and students who drive will leave out of a certain door. This allows us to contact trace and really just have a system for the beginning and the end of the days.
A question came in asking about what about before school groups? Will they still be happening?
If the groups are part of our instructional program, we want to make allowances for those types of activities to continue. We also know that some of those groups are high exhalation courses, I think is the language that we use later on. They're related to singing and musical instruments. And so we will want to make sure that we're able to provide a safe environment. And Lori Posch will be talking with us a little bit later on about some of the adjustments that we'll be making for classes such as that. So we want to talk with you about our learning expectations and the overall structure of our instructional program. As you heard Superintendent announce and the board approved last night, we will be using an AB flex model. And so our students will be assigned by last name alpha. If your child's last name is A through K, they'll be coming on the A days, which is the Monday and Wednesday. If their last names start L through Z, they'll be coming on B days, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we know how important it is for families to plan. So those days will remain consistent throughout the duration. So if you want to know what day, if your child will be coming to school or not on April 16th, we'll be sending out a calendar and you'll be able to know it's a Tuesday, it's a Thursday, my child will be in school or they will not. People have asked us, why did you choose this model? Other districts have done AA, Flex BB, sometimes they're doing AABB. And so we want to share a little bit about why we chose this because a lot of thought went into it. In consultation with our teachers, we chose the ABAB Flex, the Friday Flex Day, because our teachers wanted the opportunity to see all of their students before having the chance to either pull small groups, work with students individually, or reteach an entire concept to a whole class. If we had our Flex Day on Wednesday, they would only have seen half of their students and would have to wait an entire week before they were able to understand which concepts students might not have mastered or which students might need some extension or support. And in terms of potential exposure benefits, for us, it makes a lot of sense to be able to have 24 hours between another group of students arriving. We are deep cleaning every night. So the concern about, but then we have to, the germs are going to be passed on. Why wouldn't you put AA together? For us, we are prioritizing health and safety, and those buildings will be deep cleaned. The 24 hours between a student leaving on a Monday and returning on a Wednesday morning allows us to contact trace if there were to be an exposure for our confirmed case of COVID. And that's a lengthy process. AtHome and his team led that over the summer. And so for us to really do a thorough job of understanding who might have been potentially exposed throughout a day, contacting those families, takes a bit of time, as you can well imagine. And so having that 24 hours really allows us to provide a safe environment for all of our staff and families. Lori, would you walk us through what the learning expectations are for the different types of in-person and distance learning that our families will encounter?
Absolutely. And Principal Fisher did a nice job of introducing a lot of this during the schedule piece of it. We do have high expectations for our students, whether they are learning on site or whether they are learning at home. We know that learning does take place in both places, and our teachers are so skilled at being able to make sure that that learning is happening. So on in-person days, as Dr. Putnam mentioned, all of our courses will take place through Schoology. So on days when they are in school, they will still be working through Schoology. All of the assignments, all of the materials that our students need will be found in Schoology. When they are in person, our teachers will be working with them on some of those hands-on types of activities. So in science, some of the lab activities, in culinary arts, some of the cooking types of activities. That most of those will happen when they are there in person. And on the distance learning days, on the days that they're at home learning, they will continue the learning through Schoology. So they'll be able to see the information that their teacher has prepared for them in distance learning as well. We do expect that our students are participating in their course, whether they are in school, in the school building, or whether they are at home. So attendance will be taken for each course. Students are expected, when they're in person, of course, attendance happens in person. When they're at home, attendance will be taken through their participation in the Schoology course that's set up for them in those activities. Alicia mentioned earlier about the Flex Fridays, and again, that is another day of learning. What's nice about the Friday schedule is that our teachers will have some time to reach out individually to students, to do some small groups of activities with them, and also to do some of that parent contact. So again, we do expect that our students are logging in on Fridays. They are looking at the information in each of their courses and knowing that our teachers really are setting them up to be successful in any model that we're in.
A couple of questions on this slide. In the AB model, will that stay consistent, or will the Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday swap at any point in time?
It will not swap. It will be consistent because we know that our families need to be able to plan around a stable schedule.
And then if you're going to address this later, Lori, we can save it. But this is a transition question. Are we anticipating, or when are we anticipating all students being in school again?
Thank you. That's a great question. You did receive a communication from Superintendent Jett describing what that transition looks like, but I'll do my best to recap it without any visuals. What we're doing is we are looking at the data released from the state every Friday. So the data provides an overview of case rates for the 4 counties that we serve, and the governor has created a matrix in the Department of Health and the Department of Education. And they've aligned that matrix of case rates per county with the type of allowed learning models. So for example, a case rate of 0 to 9, and I believe it's like 10,000 cases per some number, I'm sorry, I don't recall at the top of my head, but if the case rate that they establish is 0 to 9, it would mean that all of our students could be, K-12 could be in person. When it gets to 10 to 19, they have a staggered scale, and so our secondary needs to be in hybrid learning, and then our elementary would need to be in person. So what we are doing is we are monitoring that data every Friday, and we, as we know, are beginning our school year in hybrid learning. And then with that Friday, we will take a look at what does our county data say. And of course, we have to take the most conservative of the county data. So we serve 4 counties. We would look at the county with the highest case rates. And again, that is a directive from the governor and the Department of Education. If we see that those case rates have put us into a more restrictive learning model than we're currently operating in, we would transition over the weekend and begin on Monday with the most conservative learning model that's required by MDE and MDH. The reason that transition is so quick is because it's easier to scale back knowing that we have our learning and teaching happening through Schoology, and we have a way to deliver meals for all of our secondary students. And we also know that the health and safety of this community is our top priority. And to know that there's an increase in transmission rates and to not respond immediately is just not responsible to this community. When we see a decrease in case rates, we know that we want to be cautious about the potential of exposing any of our students or staff to any community health concerns. And so what we're going to do is we're going to monitor those case rates for 3 weeks. If we see the case rates stabilizing or continuing to decrease, then we will pull back to the less restrictive learning model. So at this point, though that was a lengthy answer, it's all in to the end of saying we cannot say when we would be bringing all of our students back in person, K-12. It is dependent on community health data.
Thank you.
You are welcome. And of course, that's a great lead into health and safety. Principal Fisher, would you want to talk us through what the mask expectations are and lead us into lunch and what that might look like and how we're maintaining health and safety there?
Absolutely. And as Dr. Putnam mentioned earlier on, it really begins with that screening at home, having that conversation about possible symptoms, and then having a temperature check and screening at school as well. And so upon arrival into our buildings, the expectation is that students are wearing a face mask along with any visitors to our building, and obviously our staff members as well. Talked a little bit about lunches and just breaking down those numbers. And just to give you a little bit more of a concrete idea, right now, if the numbers kind of stay where they are, we're looking at our lunches being anywhere from about 85 to 110 students. We feel really comfortable with our ability to space in that way. One of the things that I think is going to be a really big shift for high school kids, I'm just going to be really honest, is that we did have to make the tough decision to close the a la carte line for the year in this model, because we want to ensure that students still have choice. They will have choice among their favorite things. I'm in the lunchroom every day, and I see students grabbing salads and pizza on the daily, and then obviously having our mainline offerings. And so we want to be really cognizant of spacing in that way. And I know at Apollo we're also doing an auxiliary space for our cafeteria so that we have enough space for our students to have that lunch experience and have that academic break.
Thank you. I know that a la carte is a really big thing, and so we appreciate your understanding. We know that some of our students rely on the food that they get from our schools. And when students are heading home, knowing that they aren't coming back to school the next day, we have to be sure that we are able to provide food for them. And so our students who are wanting a meal, and that includes breakfast and lunch, I should be clear, are going to be able to grab and go at the end of the day. And that means that we need all available nutrition staff and cafeteria support staff to not only be prepping and serving meals for the in-person, but also for prepping and the meals for the students who are heading home. And that just makes a real tough strain to be able to offer, as Principal Fisher said, all of the choices that we've offered in the past. And so we do appreciate that understanding. We touched briefly on cleaning routines, but we just really want you to know that we take this very seriously. We are providing hand sanitizer in each classroom. We know that soap and water is, of course, the best choice, and so we're glad that some of our rooms have sinks, but those that don't, we'll be providing stations to get sanitizer. And it will be the responsibility of all of our classroom communities to keep their spaces clean. And so we will be implementing routines and teaching what that expectation is. And it could mean that we're asking our students to wipe down the surface of their desk before they leave. Or it could mean that they wipe down when they come into the classroom, or it could be both. As we said at the beginning, the health and safety of this community is a collective responsibility. And we will be involving all of our community in keeping us in school as much as possible. Lori, would you talk to us a little bit about high contact, high exhalation courses that our students are scheduled into it?
Absolutely. When we talk about high contact courses, those are the courses, and we're not talking about contact with student to student, but we're talking about contact with materials. So I mentioned earlier the science labs, Phy-Ed, where they have Phy-Ed equipment. And the high exhalation courses are the courses like music and band, where there's a higher level of the possibility of air particles moving through. We have consulted with the Minnesota Department of Education and their recommendations for all of these courses with CDC, with area higher ed institutions who have served on some of those committees to look in depth at that, as well as Dr. Putnam mentioned earlier, local medical consultants. And what we're finding is that there are certain materials that are at higher risk for transfer of any virus, and those types of things. I'm going to use a fabric mallet for an example. Those types of materials are harder to clean. So our teachers are looking at all of the materials that they use and considering the availability of being able to clean them. We know that things like rubber balls in Phy-Ed are much easier to clean. They don't hold germs and viruses. So our teachers are looking really closely at what they teach and when they teach it. We'll be doing some of our activities may happen at home. So they may be practicing an instrument at home and videotaping that and sending it back to their teacher. I can tell you that as we are reviewing all of the recommendations and all of the requirements for us, what we know is that our teachers have put together extensive lists of what they need in order to make sure that safety is maintained. Our band teachers have put together the lists of what they need for safe use in the instruments, cleaning the instruments. Those of you who have been in band know that there are some instruments that we have to empty the condensation that happens, and we're looking at the best ways and the safest ways to do that. Our science teachers also have submitted lists of the materials that they need, like gloves to be used in labs. So we do know that we have to redo how we have done some things in the past. We know that we have to maintain that social distance. We've heard that over and over again, especially in courses like band and in choir. So maintaining that 6 feet of distance will be really important. We are putting together, with the assistance of our leads in all of those areas, recommendations and requirements that will go to all of our teachers to ensure the safety of our students and our staff in those courses.
Great. And Lori, on the health and safety side, very specific questions about COVID-19. What happens if either a student or a staff member is positive? And talk about quarantine a little bit.
Thank you. We are putting together a couple of publications that will help our families and our staff in deciding, first of all, when they need to be home in terms of quarantining. And then we also have a matrix that was put together with consultation from our Central Care partners that shows at what point we would need to close a classroom, at what point we might need to close an A group or a school or multiple schools. And so that will be out shortly. And Superintendent Jett did share that at his, or Tracy Bowe shared it at our presentation last night. So we know that if a student or a staff is test positive, or even if they were exposed and tested negative, but they're showing any symptoms, or even if they are no longer showing symptoms, it's this crazy sort of situation, right, where we just need people to quarantine. And so families, if a sibling is testing positive, then siblings need to stay home. Right now, we're still awaiting guidance, and this is the reason we have not published this yet, because there's been conflicting guidance on if it's 10 days or is it 14 days for that quarantine. And we know that if it's a Monday through Thursday, that's a long 4 days. And so we want to be sure that we're giving the most accurate information. But I've never seen anything under 10 days, at which point a student or a family member or staff would need to quarantine. And I've not yet seen anything over 14 days. But again, the great part is that if students are feeling well, or even if our staff needs to quarantine and they're feeling well, they can still continue to participate in the learning and the teaching virtually through Schoology and through Google Meet. So that's one silver lining in a tough situation. Did I cover that, Tammy? Thank you.
I think so.
Okay. Adam, would you talk us through activities?
Absolutely. We're so excited that we're going to get to start with activities, and we know that sports started on Monday, and the students are out running around and having fun and swimming in the pools. We're going to follow all the Minnesota State High School League changes, and they'll guide us on a 30%, less contests, 20% less weeks. And as that goes, both activities directors will be communicating out with parents. We'll also follow as they continue to look at when to offer activities. But the key is that once school starts, our fine arts are going to hit the road running. So we're going to work, the activities coordinators are going to work directly and get the student. When that bell rings, we want some students to go to the bus, but Principal Fisher and Mr. Harris have asked that the more students that are involved in activities, the better they're going to do in and out of the classroom. So they'd like to see everybody staying involved in an activity that is safe and that they have rides home, because we don't provide any rides home. But we want students engaged and involved in the safe activities, but we will follow the Minnesota State High School League for guidance and follow all their directives. And there'll be transportation for our middle schoolers to practice if they're involved in the 7-12 piece, but there will be no transportation home. There will be transportation to all activities, and I believe the activities directors are signing out a way that if you want to take them home and you sign a form that would relieve pressure on the bus, there's a way for them to do that as well. But our number one priority is safety, participation, and being active.
Thank you. Back to school events. I know that Apollo just concluded their device pickup. Principal Fisher, would you talk us through device pickup and potentially the insurance and what families can expect?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was absolutely wonderful to have our staff, students, and families on campus today. And we had an absolutely successful day with school pictures and our first round of device deployment. And so when we talk about device at the secondary level and specifically high school, we're talking about a laptop. We know it's extremely important that our students have cutting edge devices so that they're able to participate not only within their academic expectations, but be able to extend their knowledge with technology integration. And it's a valuable tool for our instructors as well. And we're really proud to be able to get these devices out before school starts. What you see here is the schedule for device pickup in the secondary schools. And all of the schools have multiple dates. And like I said, our goal is to get these in the hands of our learners prior to school starting. And we take great pride in not only providing the device, because that's really just a tool, but our pride is really in the integration of technology and being able to create and accelerate and really elevate a learning experience for all of our students. And so please take a look at this and come on campus. Most of the schools are doing a really convenient device pickup outside. And today, I don't think any family spent more than probably 10 or 15 minutes on campus. It was really just a smooth delivery of the device.
Thank you.
And I'm going to bring up two questions, but maybe Lori wants to address them later because they're Distance Learning Academy questions about this chart for both devices and picture day that you mentioned before.
I can pop in on that, and I'll also talk about agreements and insurance because I was tasked with that earlier. We invite all of our Distance Learning Academy students who have chosen that model to go to their home school and pick up their device so that they're ready to learn. And also, something that just speeds up the process if you're able to get online beforehand and complete that technology agreement. That's really just the expectations that we have when we're using a school device. And then the insurance forms. And we can have those on campus, but it certainly makes a really streamless process if you're able to do that in advance. So again, Distance Learning Academy students, please go to your school and pick up your device.
Thank you. The other thing that you can do when you're at device pickup is to grab any belongings that you may have left last spring in your lockers. We have stored those for you safely over the summer, but need that space back. So we ask that if you got anything left that you grab it. Otherwise, we're going to need to get rid of it once school starts and our students come back. In terms of welcome back events, we've got several opportunities upcoming. And the first are family conferences, and then we've got ninth grade orientation. Principal Fisher, back to you.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. We know that one of the most exciting pieces of the school year is having that quintessential open house experience. And as we've alluded to many times in this presentation and throughout the course of the last 6 months, health and safety is a top priority. So we're going to be doing our family conferences virtually this school year. Every student will have an opportunity along with their family to connect with their advisory teacher and have about a 15 or 20-minute conversation and conference about their goals for the school year, any questions that they may have. Certainly we know the needs for our incoming ninth graders may be very different from our seniors. And so we really want to make that flexible and conversational. That will happen over a Google Meet, and that link will be sent out. And parents will have the opportunity to sign up on the scheduled dates for your school within Skyward. And we're setting up that system right now as we get student schedules settled. And so you can find more details forthcoming about that opportunity to conference with our families. Dr. Putnam also mentioned our ninth grade orientation day. We're excited. What we've always done as tradition is that first day is for our ninth grade students. It provides an opportunity for them to come into the school, feel really comfortable. And, one of the best parts of the day, and honestly the school year, is that our link leaders, our upperclassmen, lead that morning day. And they will do so as well. It'll be a virtual day. So students will not come to campus on that first day. And even our ninth graders being in session on the 8th will be doing so virtually from home. Half of the day will be get to know you collaboration, get to know the school activities with our link crew leaders. And the second half of the day will be class time. So you get to know each of your instructors in an abbreviated format. And it's kind of fun because you'll have lunch on your own at home during that day. So we've also created virtual orientations and kind of tours of the building. Next week, you will see a YouTube video that will come out. It's about 14 minutes, and it's a virtual tour of our school. And you'll see that on social media as well. So we're doing everything we can to get kids acclimated, get families comfortable as we bring our new Eagles into Apollo High School, and obviously, the secondary buildings as well.
I'm wondering if Lori could start with Distance Learning Academy because my dogs are really loud.
Happy to do that. We are so excited to be able to offer a Distance Learning Academy option for our families this year. We have recently named an administrator for our Distance Learning Academy, and that's Heather Ebnett, who is also one of the assistant principals at North. We will be creating our Distance Learning Academy as another school family. However, the students will stay aligned with their home school as well. So our Apollo students will still be Apollo students, and our Tech students will still be Tech students, and our McKinley students will still be McKinley students, but they will also be Distance Learning Academy students. So our teachers are teachers from our district in licensed teachers. I've had that question come up. Will they be licensed? Yes, they are licensed teachers. They are teachers that are employed by our district who have either volunteered to be part of Distance Learning Academy or have been invited to be part of that. We are right now working on the schedules for our Distance Learning Academy. It will follow the same format as our high school. So our students in Distance Learning Academy will take 3 classes each of the days. They will have some times where they are logged in and synchronous with their Distance Learning Academy teachers, and other times where they will be working on projects and assignments in small groups together. We do not expect that our Distance Learning Academy students are sitting on their device for the entire day. They will be expected to log into each class and have attendance taken that way and to participate fully in whatever the activities are for that day, but they will be logging in and out throughout the day, so not staying on their device for the entire day. Course offerings. We are working right now, as I said, to look at the registrations. We are happy to be able to offer almost all of our courses to our Distance Learning Academy students, but we do know that we have some courses that, because of low registration numbers, will not be able to be offered. Another question that comes up a lot: will my child be able to participate in AP classes? Will they be allowed to participate in their music offerings and their world language offerings? And the answer is yes, they will, if those classes have enough students enrolled. So whether, and that is the same every year for our classes. So we will look at the combined total of students registered both on school sites and in Distance Learning Academy and make the determination. Right now, we know that we have some courses that will happen synchronously. So our students who are in Distance Learning Academy will be logging in and taking the class with the teacher who is on the school site at the same time as the students who are there. Again, I mentioned attendance will be taken every day for each of the classes. Meals, we're in the process of working through our meals for students that need school-provided meals and how that will work for drop-off and pick-up sites. Heather Ebnett, again, will be getting information out to all of the families. If you registered for Distance Learning Academy, you can assume that you are part of the Distance Learning Academy. And again, Heather will be reaching out to everybody. Alicia mentioned device pickup. You pick those up at your home school, and the same with school photos. Our students who are in Distance Learning Academy can participate fully in activities. However, transportation won't be provided to those. So that transportation would be on your own. And I think we talked about conferences as well. We're excited again to have this opportunity for our students.
So I have several scheduling questions to circle back on, if I may, and one about transitioning, Lori. I missed this right after we got off of when you were talking about what it takes to transition, and it's a good question. If we were to transition into in-person, so everybody back, the question is, would the scheduling stay the same? So the block scheduling and so forth.
Thank you. That is a good question. It would stay the same. We would still be in the same position of wanting to ensure as few transitions as possible, because the fewer transitions, the fewer potential exposures. And while we would all love to be back in person every day for the rest of the year, we also know that the unpredictable nature of COVID-19 and its transmission rates and the behavior of our community impacts what those that the transmission looks like. And so even if we did get to go back, we would have to rely on the data from the governor and still follow the governor's matrix. So if the case rates were to rise again, we would of course have to move to a to a more restrictive model.
Thank you. This scheduling question is very, very specific about logging into classes. What does that mean exactly when students are logging into individual classes? This is hybrid, by the way, not distance learning. Is there an occasion where a class or a lecture is real time? Is it all loaded into Schoology and then you're watching it passively? Can you talk more about that? And I think it's a question of how is distance learning 2.0 not the same thing as distance learning last spring?
Lori or Alicia, I think either of you could answer and maybe you both want to tackle it.
I can start and then Alicia can chime in. And I just want to make sure that I clarify the distance learning 2.0 is a separate model. So right now we're operating in the hybrid model, and distance learning 2.0 would be like another option that we would go to where all of our students would be in distance learning. So the distance learning part, that's part of hybrid, are those days when they are at home learning. And now I'm drawing a blank on what I was going to say with that. I was focused on.
I think this person's question is, what does logging into Schoology look like now?
Thanks, Tammy.
Do I log in and I'm looking at a videotaped lecture, or am I actually a part of a class that's in person back at my high school?
Thanks. Thanks for refocusing me, Tammy. In most cases on the at-home learning days, when you log in, our teachers will all have Schoology courses set up, and they'll be practicing that with their students so that all of our students know how to log in, where to find the information. On their at-home days, most of the information that they'll be working on is not synchronous, so they'll be doing it on their own time. Some of it may be recorded by teachers. Some of it may be activities that the teacher has set up the day before when they were in person. If there was ever a need for a class to log in synchronously, the teachers would notify the students of that ahead of time to make sure that all of the students were aware of the day and time that they would be doing that. Alicia, anything to add?
Yes, I would. I would add that the expectation is the students are signing in as if they were heading to class, right? So, the bell rings, I'm in my seat ready to learn, I'm already signed into Schoology, and we'll be using those analytics from Schoology to then transfer an attendance code to Skyward, and we'll have more accountability on a period-to-period basis with attendance, as opposed to what we're referring to as 1.0, which was in the spring, and as we mentioned, it was a one-time per day sign-in. We heard feedback from our parents, frankly our students, which was surprising, and our community members, that we needed more consistency and ability to track attendance, and this is actually in alignment with the governor's expectations as well in MDE. And so we will be using those analytics within Skyward to take per period attendance for each class for all of our students.
And a couple specific schedule questions. What about senior to sophomore? What would that look like in this model?
We're working with our college partners right now about that. So obviously our hope is that we can continue to offer senior to sophomore PSEO, but our universities are also going through the same process that we are, and they're determining what will be available. So right now, our hope is that we'll be able to still offer all of that, but again, we're working with our university partners on that.
Thank you. And so a question about 3 classes a day, 6 total a week, when a lot of high school students took 7. So the question is, what are we giving up? Is it electives? Is it EPIC? Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Alicia, and you can jump in if I get it off, if I'm off. That 7th period in our high school schedule was a lunch study period. So students typically, while it said 7 periods on their schedule, that lunch study period wasn't providing an additional credit. It was a time to, of course, eat and then get some support from your advisor or from your peers. There were, of course, some students who did schedule themselves straight through the day, and they did not have a lunch, and they took a 7th course. We discourage that to some degree, unless it's an intentional built-in choice, like we were doing with EPIC and music and world language and other year-long courses, where we had built in a structure for the 20 minutes for lunch, because we know that our students just need a break. So in terms of credits, our students will be able to earn the same amount of credits. We were not allowing students to retake their failed classes during the day. That was what we have credit recovery programs outside of the school day, and that's where that work really belongs. That's where the funding happens. And so we are not to think of the change as giving something up. would not be accurate because the lunch is now built in. And some of that study time, I'm not sure I want to say it's built into the classes, but with longer class periods, there is time to do some of the work that's being assigned, to collaborate with your peers, to get help from what's even better, that content teacher who is assigned the work rather than a study hall advisor who may or may not be tied to the classes that students are actually taking.
So one more clarifying question then about logging on when you're on your at-home days. These are the bigger blocks of 120 minutes. I'm logging in on my schedule, so do I stay logged on for that full block of time if I'm working from home?
No, the teacher will give direction to the student about what the expectation is for the day. When I've talked to some teachers, their plan is to have a bell ringer where a student will answer a question in Schoology, and then they'll provide the at-home learning assignment that may or may not be the same as what's happening in class. And so the student will know they have to watch a video and then do this assignment. They may say, we want you to log in again at the last 20 minutes of class. Some teachers I've talked to are planning on actually having a virtual meet at the start of class. And so they expect their students to log in, whether from at home or in class, and have a meeting where they'll start off the period all together and provide instruction or lecture, and then give students direction from what to do. Those of us who have been on Zooms and Google Meets know that to be online for 6.5 hours a day is terrible and poor learning, and for any of us it just is terrible. And I don't know if it's better if you're older or younger at this point to sit for 6.5 hours a day, but that is not our model. It is not the expectation, and our staff and our teachers will be clear with students about giving them guidance on what to do.
Thank you. I hope I hope that clarified that one question. I'm also the timekeeper, and we're almost out of time. We've got 5 minutes. But this is a very good follow-up question to the discussion we are just having. And the person asks, it sounds like students are going to get less content this year. Is that a concern?
It is not a concern, and I would say that they are not getting less content. We still have all of the standards that we're covering, and from what I have learned about the block schedule, our students actually have more time to go more in depth. Those longer blocks of time, fewer transitions. So I am confident that they will not get any less, and they may even get more content this way.
Thank you. I think this is a quick one. What kind of mask or face covering is acceptable?
That's a great question. We're actually developing a board policy to make so that it'll be very clear to all of our community about what's accepted. And so what we're asking is that mouth and nose are covered. Cloth masks that cover here, the paper masks that we can buy in stores or online are acceptable. Gaiters where you pull up are not permissible, as are bandanas or scarves. Masks with the valves. Shields are permitted, provided that there's no space between the plastic and the forehead. And then certainly if there are students who have a medical exception, then that would be required to be documented by a physician, and then we would need to have a meeting with the administrator and the student and the family. But that board policy will be available to our public soon, and we are the beautiful communications department is creating a video using with the support of our own students and administrators to educate our students and our families and our staff about what sort of face coverings are and are not permitted in our buses and our schools.
Thank you. And I don't mean to rush this question, but I know that Carol Potter's not on, is she? tonight.
No.
This is a question about special education students. So maybe we could just address how the special education students are going, those that are on the IEP. Could you talk about their case managers and how that process is going to look before school?
Absolutely. Our case managers are working in partnership with our counselors as they are redoing their master schedules and their student schedules to ensure that our students on IEPs are assigned to the correct classes. They then have to rewrite the students' IEPs to fit the parameters of what the school is offering. And so they will be in communication with the student's IEP team, which of course includes the family. If there is a concern or a consideration for a student on an IEP to attend 4 days instead of the 2, then that process would be sorted out through the IEP team meeting. Now, you just heard a lot of things that need to happen before September 8th. So rest assured they are working diligently. I know some people who are in the Distance Learning Academy are wondering, well, will I still have the same case manager? And that has not been determined yet. They are working as they create, as we finalize those Distance Learning Academy registrations, looking at caseloads. And so there could be a transition to a new case manager. There could be continuity in the case manager. It just depends on which level, which building, and of course, our case managers and whether they need to themselves have medical exemptions to be on the Distance Learning Academy staff or if they're in our buildings.
Thank you. I'm going to try and work 2 more in. Back to ABAB, why by alphabet and not by grade?
Great question. We went round and round because we know that students would love to be in by grade. We know that. So when part of the hybrid learning model, which was established and defined by the governor and MDE, states that we can have 50% capacity in any school or district space. So that includes a bus, a classroom, a cafeteria, a hallway. And I promise I'll get to the end. This is just a little, I'll get a backtrack before I can answer that question. So we hired an independent agency, actually an architectural firm, to go through every one of our buildings, classroom by classroom, space by space, to tell us what is the maximum number of adults and students that can be in that space at any given time while still maintaining the 6-foot social distance requirement that is part of the hybrid learning model. They also did a furniture layout. So every classroom has a map showing where the furniture can be to still provide that social distance spacing so that we can have a safe and healthy community. So when you think about how a master schedule is designed, typically, let's just take 11th grade. Typically, they're taking very much the same courses. They're taking U.S. history, they're taking English 11, taking chemistry, potentially wildlife biology or environmental science, but those are typically they're taking the same sorts of classes. And that means our students and our staff are teaching the same, right? The staff are assigned to those students and teaching. So if we have all of our 11th graders in, our staff now have to either change. And so all of our staff are now needing to teach the classes for 11th and say 9th, if we had 9th and 11th graders together. So now they are having to teach all of those classes. And that means that teachers are potentially prepping 4, 5 different classes so that we can offer that number of courses to the grades on those days that they're needed, instead of being able to split the class in half on 2 different days and being able to assign 1 teacher to that class instead of the 2 to get the 50% capacity. The other issue is that we have classes that are mixed grade, particularly our electives, and to have all of one grade come on a particular day means that some students would not get access to the courses that A, they need to graduate, or B, that they just want to take. And then we have to decide who does and does not get that course. And that doesn't feel good for our students, for our staff, or for administration. So long answer. But please know that we did consider that very carefully because we knew it would be important for our students to be with their friends. And so thank you for the question.
And this question is wondering, I don't think I did a very good job like explaining the big login question. So the person's wondering, should I just call Dr. Putnam with my confusing question?
Absolutely. Please call me. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, that is our bell. It's 7:15.
Thank you so much to all of you. And I appreciate that question at the end. If you need to talk to any of us, call us, email us. Again, check out the website. We have another town hall next Monday evening. We want to answer your questions because we want you, again, to be confident and excited about your return to school. So thank you for joining us. We wish you a wonderful weekend, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.